Mitch is very dear to me. I mean, I see him twice a week for myself. When my kids are available and willing, they'll train with him. I'm most eager to have my son, who has FSH, train with him. Uh, and my wife, even though she's unaffected, is very fit and sees him as well. Um, and in the course of working with Mitch, initially we were just working on passive range of motion, and I realized that there was nothing over the course of months that was hurting me, and my range of motion was improving. And then with exercises involving unaffected muscles that I think were underutilized and then got weak because of underutilization, I was able to straighten out my back, so my posture looked better. And then we worked on balance, and my gait has improved. There's no there are no muscle groups that have gotten worse as a consequence of exercise with Mitch, and many, including those that are directly affected by FSH, that are stronger, and that includes biceps and a little bit of dorsiflexion in both legs. Um, I don't think the scapular musculature that he worked on was more serratus and upper trapezius. I don't think rhomboids are any stronger, but it's been slow but steady progress, and I'm very happy. And as a consequence, this has helped my mood a great deal, and I think it has allowed me to stay more independent. I just got back a week and a half ago from a 3.5 week trip to Southeast Asia, uh, where I went with a friend, and we biked in Vietnam a couple of days, 40-mile days. Not huge, but you know, I'm 60, so 40 miles even for a 60-year-old who doesn't have FSH is all right. And I got to see parts of the world that I feel very fortunate I got to see. Um, you know.
Think you could have done this trip if you had never met Mitch? And
I think my legs, my quads would have been strong enough, but my balance and my ability to walk around would not have been. And I've done some things on my own to help my walking and balance. Exercises that he's given me, but also I have a set of ankle foot orthoses that work for me very well. But no, I don't think I would have been able to go on this trip had it not been for the work I've been doing with Mitch. Yeah.
so can you describe in different parts, let's say, what sorts of things have you done that have strengthened your core?
Um, well, actually, I ride a recumbent tricycle, which involves some degree of uh, maintaining tone in the abdominal, rectus abdominis, and transverse uh, oblique abdominal muscles. I do work with a TRX. I do little half sit-ups. I do bridge exercises. I mean, the core is more than just abdominal. It's all the axial musculature. But if you think about a crane, a crane does the lifting from the end of the of I don't even know what the term of the armature. But if it didn't have a steady base, it wouldn't be able to do the lifting. So you need to work on the foundation in order for the armature to do what it needs to do. And the foundation in my case is strengthening core musculature and legs, and improving balance, and working on if I trip, how do I come out of a trip? If I fall, how do I get myself off the ground? That sort of thing. I think we neglect that when we think about, functional activity and strength.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. By the way, everyone, please feel free to raise your hand with questions that come to you as Bill is speaking.
You
Um,
asked me specifically about abdominal muscle exercises.
or,
What
well,
were you
as you
asking?
say, it's probably broader than core. So
Yeah.
which muscles were affected in you in that core region by FSHD, and which ones did you do some sort of targeted exercise to
Yeah.
address which ones are still healthy and able to, be strengthened through?
So, like many people with FSH, I have some degree of abdominal weakness, and that gives us that kind of rounded belly, the lumbar lordosis. And that's due to weakness of the abdominal muscles below the belly button. Um, and I had relatively preserved abdominal muscles above the belly button. And I targeted some of the lower abdominal muscles uh, by certain positions of crunches, and also using one of those gymnastic balls, those large inflatable balls where you can sort of arch your back over them and work specific more. You can isolate a little bit better the abdominal muscles. Mitch would be better able to describe the exercise. I don't think anyone would benefit from me half-assed explaining it. But there are ways of uh, anchoring or limiting movement in the upper abdominal muscles, and so allowing the lower abdominals to move more. And one of those exercises entailed laying flat on my back, holding my arms up against the lower portion of the couch, and that kept the upper abdominal in check while I was able to do the lower abdominal exercises.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Nancy has a question. Would you like
sure.
to
So actually I have two questions. Uh, Let me go to the most recent one. When I have often done leg lifts from lifting at my hips, is
Yeah.
that for the lower abdominal?
Well, that's I think you're probably using iliacus and iliopsoas. Maybe it requires some tensioning of the abdominals as well. Yeah, probably it does, because it probably exaggerates the curve, I would imagine, if you have your leg at 6 inches above the ground and you're laying flat. Is that what you're doing?
I'm laying flat and then no, actually I'm not laying totally flat. I'm laying flat, trying to flatten my back.
Yeah.
And then my legs would be straight up at 90 degrees.
Oh,
And then lifting at your hips, is that for the lower abdominals? You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm trying to picture it, and I'm not. I don't feel confident enough to say.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, I am. I have no shortage of ego and self-confidence, but I don't think I could have managed this just by looking up some exercises on the internet or in a book. I really
Right.
feel that the use of a trainer slash coach, not just to give me specific exercises, but to motivate me, it was indispensable. And I know that it's not something that everyone can readily afford one-on-one sessions, but I do think that even if it's less frequent, it's worthwhile, and it has to be sustained. It's not something you can do, as a weekend warrior
No, right.
and
Absolutely not.
It
Yeah,
took
I
it
had
took
a
a long
second
time to get
question.
there. Yes, yes.
And that was you earlier when you started talking, you said you had a group of articles that you sent to Mitch.
Yeah,
Do you have a list of those? Because
I can dig some up, but I mean,
oh
really,
no,
what I
I
was
don't
looking
want
at
you to
was
do that.
FSH and exercise. I mean, I did a fellowship. I won't name my mentor. He's wonderful. He wrote, I think he's one of the, if he was not the principal author, one of the co-authors of an article that looked at different types of dystrophy and said exercise is bad for you. So I was really very much under his influence. But subsequent research uh, really trashed that notion.
Right. Yeah, because I'm just, I would like to engage with a physical therapist, but I actually tried and a couple different places closer to me, and none of them really like jumped into it. I didn't really get an answer from them, and I was like, I don't know. But I thought maybe if I had articles that, because I find that most physical therapists are really dedicated and are really smart. And I just think maybe they didn't have the information they would need.
I think it's always a good idea, to bring something for them to look at and to read, as a general source of information, because how can anybody be on top of all these unusual
Exactly.
ailments?
Mhm.
But I also think the fact that they're willing to read it, as a marker of their curiosity and
That's exactly
integrity
right.
is so important. Is so important. Yeah.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Okay. So
Yeah.
I would
And,
just
and then
direct,
I wouldn't stop at physical therapists. I think that, you know, trainers who are willing to learn and who have the humility to be able to learn are really wonderful. This Mitch in particular has been a real asset as an example of that.
It sounds like that's the key, is someone who has curiosity and likes to solve problems, because each person is, especially with FSHD, like, is unique. You have to really assess what the situation is and then come up with solutions or be willing to experiment. And I'm just speculating here, but maybe that might be harder for some physical therapists, because they are in a medical profession that is perhaps more bound by practice guidelines, that there's not a practice guideline for FSHD, right?
Yeah,
So
maybe that was a relative advantage of Mitch, that someone who doesn't have the medical model, and he could experiment. And we've tried things that look like something out of a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, with Acme products, and I'm afraid I'm going to be flung, from this giant rubber band into some collision. But then, we adjust, and we find ways of identifying and isolating muscle groups, and getting calibrated resistance training. And that's a good point, June. I think that's right. Maybe the medical model is a bit of a straitjacket when it comes to the kind of improvisation you'll need to work on someone who has a disease that can manifest in such a variable way.
Helen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do. June knows this. I was in a car accident 9 years ago, and that was I'd have been in another accident about 21 years ago. So, but the second one was a lot worse. The car was totaled, and it was, I definitely, I knew right away, I'm in for it now. And so the first year I just went for massage. And then I saw a physiotherapist, and he was fairly aggressive in a way, which was good on one hand, not so good on the other. But I think there was a little bit, because it was an insurance accident. He was wanting to make a bit of money. Yes. But it did show me that he had a trainer that it was a young guy that worked with me for quite a while, and he probably had me doing some exercises that I would never have thought of doing, and definitely the scapular region got stronger, until I had to have I had some skin cancer just below my shoulder blade, and it was deeper than they thought it was. So then that incision and healing, I couldn't do the exercises then. So then I went, well, one of the things that the younger guy did with me was planks. And the physiotherapist, when he came out through into the gym and saw me doing a plank, he said, "Oh my goodness, I wouldn't have thought you could do that." And I had no trouble doing that. And that seemed to really help my core. Yeah. But there was some exercises out of that were good, but there were some that weren't, because I think it was overuse, overdone, and I think it took the healing longer. So then I was talking to the neurologist, and who was out of town. I had to travel out of town for that. And I said, "I don't know, I'm trying to find somebody that can help with exercise." And she said, "You need to look for a neuromuscular physiotherapist." I said, "What?" What kind? And that took quite a while to find. But then there was a new clinic here that had opened up in town, and it was a neuromuscular, and they deal with a lot of different conditions. And she not encountered FSHD, but she was young, she was curious, and she's been super helpful. And some of those exercises, like things like, how do you get up off the floor? How do you turn over in bed? How do you get, I felt very confident asking her, because she had taught those kind of techniques to other people that had other conditions. And she, if I couldn't do it, then she'd figure out a way that I could, let's try this, let's try that. So sometimes asking for a neuromuscular physiotherapist might help. And then she's also been really helpful, because there's no neuromuscular neurologist in town. And a guy moved in that for 2 years, and he was excellent. He specialized in that, but he's moved away. I'm still his patient, just phone visits. But I was referred to a physiatrist, and that appointment got canceled at the last minute, and I got referred to another one who did not have a lot of curiosity about FSHD. And it was the physiotherapist. I finally said to her, I said, "Can you do a report for me?" And, I paid her for it. And she did up a medical report, because we're without a family doctor now too. So when I go to a doctor, I've got a report, and I took it to the physiatrist, and he did an absolute about turn, because he read the report, and suddenly the light went on in his head, and he realized, oh, because he'd been suggesting things that were not helpful at all. So you really have to advocate. You have to read, take an article in. But I had tried taking an article into this physiatrist, and he wasn't.
Yeah, I think, expertise is wonderful, but I think the willingness to learn and curiosity is more important than the credential.
Yeah.
One thing that you mentioned about turning in bed, I had a fear. I felt very vulnerable when I was in bed, that I couldn't get the covers off of them. I would kind of asphyxiate. I had very weak triceps. And in addition to being able to ride a little bit on a bicycle and not fall over the handlebars anymore because my triceps have strengthened, normally I use a recumbent, but I can in a pinch ride a upright bike. I can now lift the covers off the bed with the tricep strength, and I'm not fearful at night. And that's a weird little thing, It's like I that's a benefit of exercise that I would never have imagined.
Wow.
Yeah.
Erica has her hand up.
Hi, yeah. I really appreciate, everyone here sharing their knowledge and stories. I had a couple questions for you, Bill, and I had to step away for a little bit at the beginning, so I hope I'm not asking something you already covered, but it sounds as if working with a trainer, you were able to see improvement, not just kind of maintenance as to where you were at. What kind of percentage, if you had to guess, improvement did you feel you saw from what you had?
I couldn't move my triceps against gravity, and now I could, do it with resistance of, I don't know, 20 pounds.
Wow, that's amazing.
15 to 20, yeah.
Okay.
I biceps, I had a hard time bringing my hand to my mouth,
Mhm.
and I would eat, with the elbow planted on the table, and bring my head down to the food, and I can bring food to my mouth, and I can lift, I can curl 10-pound weights
That's
with
amazing.
biceps without, starting from dead stop, not swinging into position.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know what that means on a percentage basis, because the base function is so low. I mean, that would exaggerate the improvement. Dorsiflexion was only trace, and it's only marginally better
Yeah.
in my ankles. Lumbar lordosis is, well, the lower abdominal is stronger, but I don't think that is much better. My shoulder girdle, in terms of the position of my shoulders at rest, that's improved. I mean, that's market, but I think that's mostly due to rebuilding muscles that had gotten weak from disuse. That's not directly related to FSH.
Okay.
And stretching, out. At one point, I had much stronger pectoral muscles than the shoulder abductors, and then I sort of fixed in that position. But then working on range of motion in the shoulders and then strengthening the shoulder abductors has helped.
Great. I think you actually covered my next question, which was how much do you incorporate stretching into your routine?
It's part of it, and it's largely in the shoulder girdle now that I'm doing stretching, also some hip bridges. I find that in addition to the times that I meet with Mitch, I want to do some exercise every day, and I'm not covering everything every day, but I try to do shoulder girdle range of motion. I have a TRX set of straps, and since I have it hanging in my office, it's easy to just go in there, do some squats, and then do some arm range of motion with it. And I have a treadmill desk where I walk. It would probably be better if it were inclined, but it's not. And then I have the recumbent trike, and between those things and a few little weights that I have at home that I mostly ignore. I don't use them as much as I should. I've really tried to make this like a lifestyle change. And I also had a couple years after I started with Mitch, I had a lab test suggesting I had prediabetes, and so I took that as a opportunity to lose weight. So I'm working on, the whole package. I try to get good sleep. I'm trying to eat well. I'm exercising, and I think it's been helpful.
That's great. I have one more quick question, and I'll stop stealing the show. You just mentioned a lot of different pieces of equipment, right? Free weights, exercise ball, a treadmill. What would you say is the one that you enjoy the most, or you've seen a lot of improvement with?
The recumbent tricycle for me is the most wonderful, because I feel the freedom of movement. I don't feel handicapped when I'm riding around on that. But in terms of which piece of exercise equipment has done the most for me in terms of improvement. Those TRX straps, they strap over a door frame. They're like $100 or something like that. But little weights are cheap. The gymnastic ball is cheap. The treadmill is expensive. I wouldn't jump on that unless you live in a lousy climate and you need some exercise. You know, I'm in Portland in the winter. I have a seasonal affective disorder light, you know, those broad spectrum lights, and a DVD player. So I listen to lectures and I, you know, walk on that thing in the winter months mostly. So the most bang for my buck has been the TRX straps.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, Bill, the recumbent bike you use is actually a bike that you ride outside. It's not a stationary bike, or just
Right. So this is a tricycle where the seat is kind of low to the ground. I've been riding recumbent trikes since about 2001, and in 2000 my triceps were really weak at that point, and I braked suddenly on a bike and I went over the handlebars. And you'd think, well, okay, once should be enough for me to learn, but no, I had to do that twice before I decided to try an alternate mode. And with the low-lying recumbent trike, if I were to brake hard, you know, even from a high speed, the rear wheel might lift a little, but I don't go over the handlebars. And now my triceps are strong enough that I can. I feel confident enough that I can ride a upright bike slowly. But if I had to brake suddenly and at high speed, I'd worry about, you know, if my triceps could support me. Yeah.
So actually, with a recumbent bike, I've heard some people say it's a challenge getting up out of it because it's low to the ground. Do you have a trick for that?
It is low to the ground, and it is a challenge, but there are like bars that you can use, handholds to lift up. And there are also trikes that are not so low to the ground. I mean, another problem with the low recumbent is visibility from traffic. So I try to avoid, trafficked areas, and I use a flag and I use optic yellow. But, you know, I was riding my bike in Vietnam on roads, you know, and in Cambodia and in Laos. So you can do it. You can do it. I'm going to get a backup trike with electric assist. This last weekend, I went on a 33-mile ride, and that normally would get me very tired. But with the electric assist, I was getting exercise. It was the equivalent of like a 15-mile ride in terms of exercise, but my range was great. And I was able to keep up with stronger riders, and that felt wonderful. Now, international travel or any airplane travel with a trike is cumbersome, but good. It's a mobility assistance device. They don't charge for it. And I've done that. And but you can't use the bikes with the electric motors because the batteries are a fire hazard in the airplane cargo. But I think within the next couple of years, standardized batteries like Bosch systems will be available, and if people need to use electric assist to get around, that'll be available too. So I am very, very fortunate to be able to still travel and to move around when I've gotten off the airplane because of the use of recumbent trike. So that's been really wonderful.
That sounds great. I was wondering, so a lot of people report pain and fatigue, especially in the upper body, probably from the scapular issues as well, and so on. Did you have that before, and has that improved with?
I've been fortunate. Pain has not been an issue for me. I've had weakness,
Mhm.
And then after like hard exercise, I get a little bit of muscle soreness, and sometimes I'd worry, is this a precursor to, a period of muscle loss? I'd have like some fasciculations and I'd freak out, but pain per se has not been an issue.
Okay.
For people who have enjoyed in the past biking and who do have shoulder pain or neck pain or back or butt pain, the recumbent bicycles can alleviate that. But in terms of pain that I can attribute to FSH, that has not been an issue for me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left. If anyone else has questions, now's the time to, or wants to contribute an experience of yours, now's the time. Oh, Mary, okay, if you unmute. There you go.
Yeah, my question was, do you use your recumbent trike in the airport to get from gate to gate? Is that what you were saying?
I have. No, what I've done is I've packed it up, said a little prayer. I'm not religious, but when I send off my
you
recumbent
never know.
trike, I do pray. And then either walk to the gate or wheelchair. But I have used the trike on 2 occasions to get to the gate itself. Yeah, and it's a little bit heavy, mine, to be useful that way. There is a company, I think it's called A-Link or A-Linker, which has a 2-wheel kind of scooter thing that folds, is pretty light, and does not have pedals or a chain or anything. It's basically you sit on it and you scoot along. I'm going to give that a try and see if that might be useful for getting around airports, which are flat and long distances are hard. That might be a way of negotiating airports.
I don't know if they still sell it. I saw a rolling suitcase that has a thing that slides out to become like a skateboard. You're supposed to ride it there, but like there's an accident waiting to happen.
That sounds fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd be the first to do that.
No. But maybe somebody will come up with a hybrid carry-on suitcase that becomes like a little scooter or something.
Well, I mean, they have these motorized, luggage things, and I think that the trick will be getting standard batteries, or
Yeah.
so that when you arrive in a new place, you can get a battery for your
Right.
wheelchair, or your scooter, or what have you.
Yeah,
And
that would be great.
I think it's just started in Vietnam. They have a rental of electric battery service. So if I had done my trip to Vietnam 1 or 2 months later, I maybe would have been able to bring an electric trike there.
Uh-huh. Helen, you have a question?
In terms of travel and wheelchairs and getting around, especially in airports, because there's, quite lengthy. I just did up a file on rollators and wheelchairs from, I think it was a wellness meeting, and there was a lot of suggestions. And then, as I got them organized, there's way more out there than most of us are aware of. But there was some products, and they even said, I think this is maybe more in Europe, but I'm not sure, and North America, but I'm not sure. But sometimes you can travel and then rent something, so it's something to check out ahead of time. And there was also, there was the thing like, there was different attachments to even a transfer chair or something that you could, or to a manual chair that gave you a bit of power. And there was also, they're starting to come out with more rollators that can convert into a wheelchair, not long term. You wouldn't use it 24 hours, like 7 days a week kind of thing. But you can, if you can still walk, you can walk a ways, and then you can just simply change it. And so there was way more products than I was aware of. And some of the off-road things and beach things were great.
I've got to
there's
get that
a lot
post.
off.
I've got to get that write-up posted on our blog, because especially with summer travel coming up. So thank you for.
Yeah, it takes, there's a lot there. But if somebody's got the time and can just do a few every few days, just check to see, because it was eye-opening to sort of see what all the products. Yeah.
Rakesh, maybe you have our last question of the hour.
Yeah, hi. Sure, it should be a quick one. I didn't capture the name of the gentleman who does international travel, but just had a question. So I just came back from international travel, and I went through, the handicap just because I was having real trouble walking that time. And the lady came forward and she questioned me, is why, am I even coming? And she was asking for documentation. So my question was, do you carry something, or is there something which is kind of a federal standard or statewide or something which help us go through that obstacle should we come across?
I don't have that, or a letter from your physician might be helpful. But in my case, it's so obvious that I'm affected that nobody's questioned it. Yeah. But if you're in a position where people are questioning it, a certain part of you should rejoice. You can pass. But I know my experiences have been largely positive, and people in airports have really gone out of their way to try to help. They sometimes, fumble and don't know what I need or not need, but I think people really are trying to help out, and I'm not aware of a document that you describe, but I've never been denied, even when I was less affected. I've never been denied when I stated it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just on a lighter note, my daughter goes in front of the lady, but you don't look like handicapped. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to jail today. So it goes both ways. So.
Oh, great. Well, we are at the end of our hour. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your stories. It's really informative, and I hope gives a lot of hope to everyone here that the right exercise, finding the right person. If you haven't found the right person, what to look for in a fitness trainer or a physical therapist. And also, I think, Bill, doesn't Mitch do remote sessions?
He does do remote sessions. It's not the same as, one-on-one, but I've,
Better
during
than nothing.
COVID, used it and found it very helpful. And he has patients who've been seeing him, abroad and across the country who benefit from it. And I'm not just touting Mitch, although he's terrific, but find someone to help you and stick with it and make a kind of a lifestyle change. It has to be a daily thing, not a little bit that you add once a week. It's got to be a real sustained effort.
Yeah, great message. Thank you so much, and we will be back in 2 weeks with Frank Hanley, 2 Thursdays from now, doing a summer session. We don't know it's a surprise. So we'll see you back then. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, June.
Bye.
Bye-bye.